Today is March the 25th, 2024, and I just wanted to make a quick video, just encouraging people to make the best of what you have to work with so that you can at least get something to grow. Because I do know that there are a lot of people who are very limited on what they have and their resources. Some people have land, but they don't have a way to use it. Some people have an apartment and a balcony. Some people have an apartment and no balcony. So I feel it's very important to at least find something that you can grow and that will help you get started. I will say that yes, I do now have 13 acres of land and I've got lots of space and lots of opportunity. But after purchasing this house, which was very cheap, but even so, it still cost money, and moving out here in the middle of nowhere, which is exactly what I wanted, it is very difficult to fix up a house that's old and needs a lot of work and fix up the land that has been neglected for so many decades and then have money to spend on things I want. So yes, I do have land, but I don't have the resources to use it. I don't have a tractor. I can't buy a tractor. I don't even have a car. So I'm like, well, I could stay in this city and be poor month after month and 90% of my money going towards the ridiculous rental prices. Or I can move across the country, which is very expensive, and have a house with land, not the greatest, but it's workable, it's livable, and I can slowly fix it. Yeah, I don't have much money to work with every month, so it's difficult. I prefer it, but I don't have money to go spend on things. And it's just my personal sacrifices. I would much rather not have a car and have to pay a neighbor to drive me into town when I need to go, and at least have a home that I own, and I don't have to worry about a landlord evicting me because I can't pay rent or anything like that. And yes, I do have to pay taxes, but I purposely picked a spot where it's next to nothing. So anyways, I know what it's like to be very limited. And even though I have land, I have no way to use it. I don't have a tractor. I don't even have a riding lawnmower. So it's difficult. Oh, I also have permanent spine damage from workplace injuries. So, I'm just looking like a normal person, but I can't be lifting things. So I'm very limited in what I can do. There is no way I can use my land to have a traditional garden. That's just not going to happen, at least anytime soon. I have to do things that are close to the house. So make raised bed gardens, and it's taken 3 years to be able to come up with the money to purchase the wood and things that I need for my at least have one raised bed garden. And it's not completely finished, but I'm getting there, and I will show videos of my creations that are multi-purpose, and hopefully that'll help people. But I do understand living in the city. I understand apartment, living in houses, all that stuff. And so if you are limited, or if you do have land and you just want to save money or save your resources, there are a lot of options to get things done. So I picked out some things that I've collected to give examples of what I do, and I just realized I forgot something. That's okay. So if you have a neighbor that recycles, you can ask them to save some things for you. But like these containers here, this was from Salad. This is a good quality plastic container. You can start seeds in here. If you have cartons like juice, milk cartons, whatever cartons you have, you can cut the tops off. And all you do for all this stuff, and put a little bit of holes on the bottom, but also on the side. I notice people always forget that. I put holes on the sides because if you have something that is flat on a flat surface, sometimes it can be hard for the water to drain out, and it actually might block those holes. So, for example, my 5-gallon buckets, I drill holes on the side and on the bottom, so my water can easily drain out if it needs to. We do get a lot of rain here. Ice cream containers. You can use your pop bottles, cut the tops off. Yogurt containers. I mean, you can start seeds in here, just put a little bit of holes in the bottom. And even if you don't put holes in the bottom, for seeds, you can just use a spray bottle to water them. Now, mushroom containers, at least here, are awesome. They just started, the ones I buy, they just started using clear plastic. Now, something to remember is that it's not good for your roots to be exposed to light. So I don't recommend clear plastic, but sometimes that's all you have to work with. I've had to do it many times. So just use caution with that. Now, this kind of stuff, I don't recommend outside. This would just be for indoors. I've had to move stuff outside because I just didn't have anywhere to put it. I didn't have a garden to transplant stuff to. So I don't recommend this stuff outside. The sun does weaken plastic. So if you do want to keep your plastic in decent condition so you can reuse it, I would just use this indoors and then transplant into something else for outside, but do the best with what you have. Now, originally, okay, I don't have any empty of my mushroom containers, so I just grabbed one from my fridge. So this is actually my mushrooms, just to show the colors. So if you have solid colored ones, I would put your soil in here, and then if you come across these clear plastic ones, you can use it as a dome, and now you have a greenhouse. So these new clear ones that I've been seeing at the grocery store, I save those as my dome, and now you have a greenhouse. So it's good to have the solid ones if you have them, and also these clear ones. So highly recommend saving those clear ones for a dome. And even just, I mean, I personally don't use margarine. I'm not even going to get started on that. But I will say if you have margarine, sour cream, whatever you have, these are food grade good containers. So, you know, put some holes in the bottom. Now you have a planter. Another thing that I've been doing for years, stocking up on, is every time I go into town to the bakery at the I'll go to the bakery at the grocery store, and I always ask them, do you have any empty buckets? Because I found that here at the superstore, every day, if they have any empty buckets, they just toss them in the garbage. So if you go there and you ask them, they give them completely free here. You don't have to pay. I have heard of people going to the Walmart bakeries and they'll charge you, I forget, like $1, $2, $3, I forget. But it depends on your location. Some people, they charge you for the buckets, but they don't do that here. And I've been collecting any buckets I can get from there. These are food grade buckets and they have lids. And these are really good quality lids. So good, I can't even open it with one hand, but they have like I don't know if it's silicone or rubber or some kind of inner seal. So when you push down on the buckets, it has an amazing seal. They're excellent quality, thick food grade buckets. They also have the ingredients on what is in the icing that they use on the cakes in the grocery store. So just interesting fact, if you ever wondered what is in the icing on those birthday cakes that people buy at the bakeries. I did notice a change in brand though. In Canada and US, most of the name brand stores all use the same icing, but then there was a shortage. Now I've noticed this kind. Anyways, as for your buckets. So these buckets are excellent for food storage. You do have to wash them out. They don't come clean. So when they give them to you, they'll usually have icing. Sometimes they have mayonnaise buckets, mostly icing that I find. So you do have to give them a really good wash, but you can use them for food storage. They're excellent for food storage, but you can also use them as a planter. So drill some holes in the bottom and on the side. Now you have a planter. You can grow carrots on a balcony. You can grow tomatoes, onions. You can grow peppers. There's cabbage. Like there's so much that you can grow in a bucket on a porch. And I do also want to show, but I can't because this one is filled with soil. But what I do highly recommend is that after you put your holes in the bottom of your buckets, I get just the cheap landscaping fabric, not weed barrier. You could use that, but it's not necessary. I just get the cheap roll of the fabric-y kind of landscape fabric, and I cut a piece off and I put it down in the bottom of my bucket, and I make sure it comes up on the side, and that way when you're watering, or if it's raining, and the water needs to drain, it's just the water that's going to drain out, and the fabric is actually going to hold your soil in your bucket, so you're not going to lose your soil with your water. That's just a little thing that I do. You don't have to, but that's just what I do to help retain my soil in my buckets. And these are just some examples. The one thing I did forget is my vinegar jugs. So I've always saved my vinegar jugs, and I just cut the top off, and now I have a planter. And they work great, but I will say that they definitely are not sun safe. So you do need to try to avoid them at least my experience, avoid the vinegar ones in the sun, because it weakens the plastic and it cracks when you touch it. So they're might be okay in the shade. So I would highly recommend, if you're putting any of this outside, to keep it in the shade as much as possible. But you do the best you can with what you have. And I do also want to point out, again, my experience, so things that I've learned the hard way, is that when I'm labeling, I originally thought, oh my goodness, like I'm going to have the greatest seeds and gardens. You know, you get hopeful. And so I filled out all my plastic labels. I took a permanent marker and I wrote all the varieties, all cute and nice and pretty, pinks and purple colors and all different colors. And I put them in my containers, and I would put them outside to get sun. Well, they don't tell you that the sun bleaches permanent marker. So I ended up with a whole bunch of white tags, and there's no writing on them anymore. All the writing disappeared. The sun bleached it off. So I've then learned the hard way that you'd need a sun fade resistant marker. I can't find any of that kind of stuff at Walmart, Staples. I haven't found anything. But I did find, when I went online, you can buy a Sharpie brand, Extreme Conditions. It's a fade resistant permanent marker. So you may have it at your local Staples or Walmart or Office Max, if they still have those. You can try and look for them. I personally have not been able to find them in store, and I have a hard time finding them online except Amazon. So I personally buy my markers to label my garden on Amazon, and I use the Sharpie Extreme Conditions marker. And I believe right now I found a sale, at least here in Canada. I found you can get one marker for $5 and something cents. They do have 2-packs and 4-packs, but funny thing, it was actually cheaper to buy a single marker than the 4-pack, because the 4-pack was $15. So it costs an extra $5 to buy a 4-pack instead of just buying 4 singles. So just to give an idea of the cost. But I do buy those markers on Amazon, and I highly recommend, if you're going to be making labels for your gardens, so you know the varieties that you've used or where things are located, please make sure that you use a sun fade, it doesn't have to be sun, but just a fade resistant permanent marker, like the Extreme Conditions marker. And that will save you a lot of heartache in the end, trying to figure out what varieties are what. But again, do the best you can with what you have. These are just ideas of some of the things that I've used. And another thing, actually, I have it right here. There's just so much snow. So I have these buckets here, actually. I didn't dump them out because they're excellent for weights. And I use them to hold the plastic down so the wind doesn't blow the plastic all over the place. And there's snow everywhere behind it. So another thing too, if you keep some of your herbs in buckets, even though they're not like I don't want to say dead, but they're all dried up and it's freezing cold outside, they smell so amazing. So I kept these buckets for weights, but every time I open my door, all I can smell is the most amazing fresh mint smell from my mint plants. I do have some rosemary and my lemongrass, but it's the mint. My frozen, dried up, mostly dead mint plants make this whole area smell like fresh mint, and it's so amazing. So if you do have mint plants that you are done with at the end of season and you have an enclosed space, put them in there, because oh my goodness, it's a natural fragrance and it's so good. But anyways, this is another thing that I've done. So these are what I got some of my strawberries in from the garden centers. And what I found is that often if you go to the garden centers, you don't even have to buy anything, you can ask them if they have any empty containers, because they just throw them out. So I've gotten tons and tons of trays and even a whole bunch of containers, because what happens is sometimes stuff will fall and they'll clean up the dirt and the plants, but they'll just toss the container in a pile with the garbage stuff, with the garbage trays. And a lot of the silicone seed starting cells that you can buy now and other containers fit great in those trays at the store. So it's one less thing to buy. So anyways, I always keep these. And again, see all these holes? I just buy a roll of the cheap from the dollar store landscaping fabric. It ain't good to put in raised beds, I will tell you right now, because weeds will go right through it. But it's just good enough to stop the dirt or their soil from draining out. So no, I don't recommend them for actual like weed barrier, because it does not work. It's a waste of your money. But if you just need something to stop the soil from draining out of those holes at the bottom, the dollar store landscaping fabric. And also, if you just have a cotton t-shirt, like an old one, cotton rags that are clean, you can toss them down there. It's perfectly fine. And then you can wash them at the end if they're still good and reuse them. But definitely keep these and check with your garden centers and see if they have any empty containers, trays, and it's just a good way to reuse some things that are just going to be thrown out in the garbage, and it saves a lot of money. So hopefully this has given you some ideas and some motivation to just not get discouraged if you have small spaces or you're very limited on funds, because I will tell you, just because you have land doesn't mean you have a way to use it. So just because I have land doesn't mean that I'm any better off than anybody else, because I have no way to use it. So the only way that I can garden is if it's close to the house and it's very low maintenance. So I will be doing everything in raised bed gardens. I would love to have a traditional garden. Unfortunately, I have bears, foxes, weasels, raccoons, pretty much everything, deer, moose. I have a lot of stuff, and they like to eat things, and birds. So if I have a traditional garden, it's going to have to be fully fenced in. And even then, that's still not going to stop a lot of these animals. So it's definitely expensive for me if I were to even try a traditional garden in the ground, because it would be a complete waste of my time. I wouldn't get anything. So I would then have to spend a lot of money and cementing posts in the ground and getting good fencing attached to it. And it's still not going to be like a 100% proof or animal proof. It would definitely help, but that's a lot of money and a lot of work, and at the moment that's just not an option for me. So I'll be doing what a lot of you are doing who don't really have much land, and especially in the city, you just have a tiny backyard. Well, that's about what I have to work with. So just because people have land, don't get discouraged if you don't, because it doesn't mean they can use it. The amount of space that I will be growing all of my stuff on is equivalent to a very tiny backyard in a city. So just keep that in mind. It's not about how much land you have, it's how you use your land. So I will be doing raised beds very close to my house, so my hose can reach every one of them. If the hose can't reach it, then I can't build that bed there. It's gonna have to move it. So I've been extremely creative in how to build raised beds and how to make them multi-purpose. And I will show you that in videos when I don't have 4 feet of snow, so you could actually see them. But there are a lot of creative ways to just use what you have to work with, and that includes your land. If you only have a small space in a garden or at the side of your house, you probably don't have any much more space than I do to work with. So just don't worry about how much land you have, because it doesn't matter. It just matters how you utilize the space that you have to work with, like what I'm trying to do. So stay motivated and get excited. I think this is going to be an amazing growing year. I feel that the weather is going to be much better than last year, and I hope everyone has an extremely abundant harvest and just have fun. I want everyone to be posting videos that are happy and showing all the stuff that they're growing and all their harvest and all the creative ways that they were able to use what they have to make the best of their situation. So I would love to see videos and pictures of all the creative ways that people are utilizing small spaces and things that they can find for free. And so it doesn't have to cost a ton of money to put in elaborate fancy gardens when you can get the exact same amount of crops and harvest from just basic growing. 5-gallon buckets. I was shocked how much zucchini I got in that thing. So I didn't really get much else because of the weather here last year. But good gracious, zucchinis. They're just never ending. I kept finding random zucchinis all the time, every time I kept checking. So if nothing else, if you grow zucchini in a 5-gallon bucket, most likely you're going to get a lot, because that was shocking to me. It was the first time I ever grew zucchini, and it was extremely abundant, and I had a whole bunch of these buckets of zucchini. So just a little tip for the day. If you're looking for something that's really abundant, zucchini I found was great. And you can shred it, you can freeze it. It's excellent. So hope everyone has an amazing day and is excited for the growing season, and just encourage others. Show people what you're doing so that they don't get discouraged because they're living in an apartment or they only have a tiny balcony. Well, there's a lot you can do with a tiny balcony. So encourage everyone else and stay positive and just get excited for this growing season. And I will see you on my next videos.